And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
You know, something that Martin Wallace, the designer of Rise of Empires, is good at doing is taking an existing game and refining it, making it better. Sometimes simplifying it, but making the whole process smoother. And we've seen this with his progression of train games, you know, from the Age of Steam, or even before that, all the way up to the Age of Steam, and then to the Rails Around the World, and then to Steam, and each time he made it, it seemed like it got a little bit better. Well, I think this is the same thing. Now, this is not the same game as Struggle of Empires or Conquest of the Empire, but both those games had the same kind of genre, and now we have Rise of Empires, which has a similar name, and very certainly a similar theme. And Rise of Empires is, I guess, maybe billed as a Civilization Light type game, and I'm not sure that the light part counts, because if you play with a lot of players, the game can take quite a while, but I am very impressed with this game. There are really tough decisions, but it plays very smoothly, and I felt engrossed the entire time playing it. It certainly seems like the sweet spot of this game is with 3 players, but it can play up to 5, although expect a very lengthy period of play at that point. But with 3 players, you can knock it off in 2 hours, and I'm telling you, there's just so many things that you want to do each turn. The game takes place on 2 boards. This is the main game board where you keep track of players' scores. Also, players will keep track, as you see at the top, of how much food they have, which is one of the main resources that you keep track of in the game. The food, and you'll need to spend enough food each turn to feed your people. Some things give you food, some things will take food away. You add it up at the end of a turn, and you feed your people. If you don't have enough food, you start losing points. If you have excess food, you start getting money. Money is another commodity in the game that you will get as the game progresses. You'll use that to build cities and to do a few other things. Another one is just simply resource discs. These stands for resources that you produce. These will be used for trading. And then the other resource is basically people, I suppose. And I really wish they hadn't used cubes in this instance, but that's the way it works. Each turn you'll have a certain amount of these, and you'll be using these to put these on the map in different locations. Now, if you've noticed the map is 3 different colors, it's because there's 3 eras to the game. In Era 1, you can only go into the light tan areas. In Era 2, you can start going to these darker areas around the board. And then in Era 3, you can go to these dark green areas. The board is kind of bland, actually, but, well, so be it. At the end of each era, or at the end of each half of an era, the game takes 6 turns. Both turns take place in Era Part A and Part B. You'll look and see who controls each territory, and they will get the amount of victory points there, and whoever has the second most people gets the second amount of victory points. Looks like a typical area control game. Also, whoever controls it will get certain resources from that territory. For example, this one here gives the person 2 coins. If you control the Mediterranean Sea, you get 2 food. Some give you resources, like the black over here in the corner. You can see that this territory gives resources, and some give cubes. And later on in the game, some just simply give points and give no resources at all. This is another main section of the board that is used, and I don't have all the tiles stacked up. You actually stack them up in eras, and the third era is on the bottom, then the second era, then the first era, and some of those eras even have a differential between A and B. But there's different areas. One of these things that you'll be taking during the game progresses are these territories. You put these in front of you, and they will either produce or something. For example, this one here gives you 2 food and a cube. This one here, the woods, gives you 2 cubes, but will cost you 2 food each turn. Just like the mountains here will give you 3 cubes, but will cost you 3 food each turn. Or maybe the city here gives you a cube and a victory point each turn. Or an island gives you a food and a cube. And so you'll definitely want these because they give you resources. Over here, you'll have cities. These cities can be bought during the game. The city costs $4. It will also cost you 3 food each turn, but each turn it will give you 2 victory points. And then there's technologies that you can get. For example, you can take this technology here, the Iron Axe, which gives you a resource for every woods territory that you have. And of course, there's a lot of different technologies, so the game fortunately comes with a player aid card for everybody that tells you what all the technologies do. They're pretty simple. There's no technologies that really seem to be that complicated. Then there's a section here where you can trade in discs. For example, I can put 2 discs here and take $2. And let's show that area in a little bit closer detail. You can see that you can trade in those resource discs for either points or money, and of course the background shows you what era you can use each one of these different trading zones in. And so that's a big feature of the game. And there's some other movement cards in there, but we'll talk about them in a moment because this is where the main action of the game progresses. See, on your turn, you take one of your discs, and you have 6 of these each turn, so you have 36. You'll be doing this 36 times over the course of the game. You place it on the first row of whatever one you want to do. For example, if I want technology, I would put it here. If I wanted to build a city, I'd put it there. If I want to use the trading, I'd put it there. If I wanted to take a territory, I'd put it there. If I want to put cubes on the board, I'd put it on the last one. And then the other players are doing that also. And there's a limit, depending on how many players are in the game, of how far over you can go. Now, what's interesting is you do that in the A part of each era. In the B part of an era, when you have to take the discs off. So you can only do the same actions in the B era that you've done in the A era. Not only that, when you take these off, it will cost you money if you take off a disc that has anything to the left of it. Now, most of these discs don't have any, like for example, this one has nothing to the left of it, facing from this direction, but this one does. So if I wanted to take this action, build a city, during the B era, I'd have to pay 1 coin because there's a disc there. But if I use that disc first, then it would be free. And so that really comes into effect as you decide what actions you're going to do. I mentioned the move action. You'll be taking these. This one is during era 1. We flip it over during eras 2 and 3. This shows how many territories you can go to. So for example, this one lets me go to 2 territories. And I can use as many cubes as I have in my supply. So let's say I'm a blue player and I have 6 cubes in my supply and I use this card. I can go to 2 territories. So for example, let's say I put 3 cubes here. You can start anywhere, and then I put, or 2 cubes there, and then I put 3 cubes there, and I decide I'm going to keep my other cube for later. So I did 2 territories, like I said. Then I can start 1 combat if I want. I'll lose 1 of my troops to kill 2 of my opponents. So I do so here. I lose 1 blue to kill both yellows. That's how combats are. They're very simple. This card also has water on, which shows that I can go into water using this card. If it doesn't show that on the card, then I can't go into water territories. And, you know, different battles and different things will let you happen as you take these cards. Once you take one, no one else can take that card for that turn. So you can actually coexist with other people here, but you can kill them too if you feel the need. And you will feel the need quite a bit. Woo! There's more to the game than that, but that's basically the extent of it. The different tiles and the technologies come into play, and there's different ways to get points. Points will mostly come from cities, though, and controlling territories on the board. After the end of each era, you have to get rid of your techs and cities, but you can pay cubes and money to keep them, which most of the time you'll want to do. There's just a lot going on. This is one of those games where every time I thought, you know, there's more that I want to do than I can do. But those action things is neat because you put it down on the first part of an era, and then you take it back the second part. So for example, sometimes in the first half of an era, I don't want to put any troops on the board, but I do so because I know I'm going to do so in the B part of an era, and if I don't have a token in that row, I won't get to pull it off. I really like this. To me, I can't see any reason to play Struggle of Empires anymore because Rise of Empires has certainly succeeded in my mind. I'm not even sure I want to play Conquest of the Empire. Although, I think I might steal the soldiers from Conquest of the Empire and put them in this game because cubes, come on now. But still, this is a very well-designed game. It's long with 5 players, pretty long with 4. I would say it's a very well-done 3-player game. And that's probably when I'm going to play it the most, is with 3 players. And it just has some really neat things in it. The tech works. The theme is there. It's not as strong as it could be, but at the same time, the game is not nearly as heavy as it could be. Very easy to understand, but the strategies, wow. In one game, we came down to 3 players, and they were each a couple points apart, which was a really tense and exciting game, and all 3 players did completely different strategies. Lots of fun, one of the best of 2009.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.